Most bunk beds leave the underside of the top bunk completely unfinished, bare plywood and exposed hardware. But if you're sleeping in the bottom bunk, that's not just the underside of a bed, it's the ceiling. It's the last thing you see before falling asleep every night. Today I'll show you 2 ways to cover it. I've lived with both, and the one I'd recommend has less to do with aesthetics and more to do with how the bed is actually used. Some of the most important design decisions aren't obvious when you first finish a room. They're the ones you only notice after you've lived there for a while. I didn't think much about the underside of this bunk bed when we built it. It was functional, it looked the way I wanted it to, and I moved on to the next project. But months later, lying on the bottom bunk reading to my kids, I started looking at it differently. This was what my daughter looked up at every single day. Once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. I started thinking about how to make it look and feel intentional. The first thing I did was upholster it. I considered shiplap at the time, but I wanted something softer and something I could do quickly in an afternoon. For this option, you'll need an upholstery weight fabric. I used a velvet ribbed curtain panel because the weight and dimensions worked well. A staple gun, staples, trim, measuring tape, and scissors. Measure the underside and cut with a few inches of overage on every side. You need that excess to pull against. Start in the center and work outward, keeping tension consistent as you go. Hold the fabric taut before every staple to avoid ripples. Corners take patience. Fold them cleanly before you staple, then finish the edges with trim over the staple line. That finishing detail is what makes it feel intentional rather than improvised. A textured or patterned fabric helps more than you'd expect. Mine had a vertical rib I could line the edges up against. One caution, if your bunk has a lip or frame edge to staple into, you're fine. If it does not, add a thin furring strip so the staples have something solid to grip. I lived with the fabric version for a while and ultimately decided to replace it. Not because I didn't like how it looked, I still do, but my kids are young and when they're playing on the bottom bunk, they push against that underside with their feet. Tell me why, because I don't know. That was the shift though. I started thinking less about how it looked and more about how it would wear over time. Fabric depends on tension, and constant pressure slowly works against that. It hadn't failed, but I could see where it was headed. So I replaced it with wood boards and trim molding. I painted it to match the existing structure so the underside stops reading as something applied to the bed and starts reading as part of the bed. The molding gives the perimeter a finished edge and a little bit of architectural detail rather than just hiding a seam. It sams up to everyday wear and wipes clean. But it's not an afternoon project. It requires precise cuts, a table saw, second set of hands to hold a panel overhead, and then paint or stain. It's a genuinely more involved project than the fabric version. So which one would I choose? If the bed is temporary for older kids or you want a quick project you can tackle on your own, I'd recommend the fabric version. It's approachable, inexpensive, and finishes the look. But if the bed is a long-term piece, or your kids are young enough to treat the underside like playground equipment, I choose the wood and molding every time. Neither approach is universally better. The right choice depends on how the space will be used, and that's a question I didn't think to ask the first time around. If you're curious about this bed itself, I have a full walkthrough of the bunk bed build link below. That project came first, and this was one of the details that came afterward. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.